Chapter 031 One Day and One Night. The red blood demon lizard only felt that the impact he had received was even more terrifying than his short life. It also finally knew why its own yellow snake big brother was so terrifying. As a lizard, the red-blooded devil lizard is naturally no stranger to molting. In its lifetime, it has even experienced 4 molts. With each molt, the body will be strong. And strong. Therefore, although each molt was extremely painful, the red blood demon lizard was still looking forward to each of its molting. However, today, it saw the molting of Big Brother Pi. The human being, who had been tortured by a night of torture, was indeed the most terrifying being. He actually directly tore apart Big Brother Pi's molting. When it is implicated with flesh and blood, it is forcibly torn apart. That pain, and Big Brother Pi's howl, made it shudder involuntarily. Even more cruel, the torn snake will be eaten again. Doesn't it mean that human beings treat pet beasts, our partners, our relatives? How does it look like it's not that thing? Is this man the devil? I won't have to suffer this kind of pain in the future, will I? Red blood demon lizard, ignored. The red-blooded demon lizard's extra play over there? The light of evolution lit up and made Sumyu breathe a sigh of relief again. The 5th molt, the little skin, has been promoted from the ordinary level to the elite. From start to finish, it only took a month. This process, however, requires 9 molts. Even after being promoted to the elite level, the amplitude of the improvement decreased. Sumyu estimated that after the completion of the 9 molts, it was conservatively estimated how to reach the 4th and 5th orders of the elite. Then, after the 10th molt, true evolution will finally take place. It is also the completion of the first evolutionary stage of the 13 stages of evolution of the yellow-robed King Asta. It was only the first stage of evolution, and the magnitude of its changes and strength were so exaggerated that Sumyu really couldn't imagine what kind of situation he would reach after completing the 13 stages of evolution. Leave the planet and enter the universe? Doesn't seem to be a problem. It's just that Sumyu also knows that if he wants to evolve successfully, it is estimated that it is not so simple. Even in the display of the mythological illustration, the medium evolutionary difficulty is already good. Such a red-blooded demon lizard and the terrifying fit of the Black Dragon King of Niederhog are still difficult to find in the end. With an expectant gaze, the light of evolution slowly disappeared. After leaving the Imperial Beast space, the small skin that appeared in front of his eyes was now the 5th time he had finished molting, and finally appeared in front of Sumyu's eyes. Mutated macular snake, contracted. Rank, Elite 2nd Order. Potential, unknown. Talents, Yellow Seal, unknown. Molting, Elite. Skills, Wind Blade, Elite. Wind Realm, Emperor. Spirit Manipulation, General. Spirit Whip, General. Sure enough, it was promoted to the elite level. And directly the Elite 2nd Order? The entanglement of the previous basic skill disappeared, and in its place became a general-level spiritual ability called the Spirit Whip. At the same time, it has also become a so-called mutated macular snake. Sure enough, Xiaopai was gone on the path of the spiritual evil god. There was no change in the shape of the body, and even Sumyu felt as if the small skin that seemed to be slightly smaller than before was excitedly wrapped around Sumyu's wrist, emitting a hissing sound of excitement. The red-blooded demon lizard on the side was stunned when he saw this scene. At this time, the traces of the improvement of the strength of Big Brother Pi, of course, it also felt extremely profound. Is it difficult to forcibly interrupt it when molting, and then eat your own molting, and the strength can evolve? The red blood demon lizard felt its worldview take hold. But at this moment, the breath on the Big Brother's body can't deceive people. Is this the Master's ability? Is this why Big Brother is so powerful? The red blood demon lizard thought of the pain it had just experienced and involuntarily shivered. However, thinking of the strength of Big Brother Pi, it seems that such pain is not unbearable. Without waiting for it to come back to his senses, Sumyu waved his big hand and incorporated this red-blooded demon lizard into the Imperial Beast space. And the little skin, still wrapped around his wrist. It wasn't how Sumyu treated it differently. Purely because this red-blooded demon lizard was too large and too fierce. After the evolution of this time, the small skin is not only smaller in size, but also diffuses the yellow on the body, the sparkle of gold. It is not as fierce as an ordinary snake pet, but has a rare sense of honor and magnificence. Left on the body, It is a bit like a special decoration. Even when you go out, there is nothing. But if you follow this guy behind you, it is estimated that you will cause some troubles at the first time. Therefore, from a certain point of view, Sumyu is indeed treated differently. A full morning had passed, but after so many tosses, his house had been completely turned into a rubble. That is to say, I don't know why, there have been many fewer neighbors recently, otherwise, this movement is estimated to have been found by someone long ago. Find a big house that is quiet and independent, will not be disturbed, and can be tossed and turned, it is indeed imperative. Thinking of this, Sumyu went straight out and came to the largest real estate agents in this mountain city. He didn't bother to look for the sales office again. After all, most of the newly built floors may not meet his requirements and expectations. Mr. Su, what do you want? A woman dressed in a formal outfit with a smile said, without a little impatience and contempt for Sumyu's strange costume, which made Sumyu slightly disappointed. But it's normal. This fierce wind feather coat on Sumyu's body is made of exotic beast materials at first glance, and this kind of clothing is worth more than any so-called brand name goods. My requirements are not high. I'm going to buy a house, that's for sure. The woman's eyes showed joy. This young man looked like a lord who was not bad at money, and it seemed that he was going to become a big business. Okay, sir, you say. The first requirement is that it is big, with independent manor, independent training hall, independent pet open-air square. Sunward? It's better not to have any neighbors or anything like that, and train pet animals not to want anyone to disturb. Then it is best to build in the ancient Chinese style. I don't like that kind of tube building and bungalow villa or something. It is best to have a garden design of Suzhou and Hangzhou. The air environment is naturally better, and the geographical location does not have too many requirements, as long as it is not too far from the city. Looking at Sumyu, who was chattering, the woman opened her mouth, but did not say a word. Your requirements are not high? Chapter 032. Okay, that's it. Sumyu looked at the woman in front of him. He is also a little helpless. If the real estate agent of this family does not have a house that meets his requirements, then it can only be made up for the time being. In the afternoon, he ran 3 or 4 well-known real estate agents in the mountain city, and as a result, this request was made. Those sales almost made him get out of the way. If it weren't for the fierce wind feather coat on his body, it really showed its extraordinary heritage, and it was estimated that those people would even have a smiley face enough to choke on him. After all, this request is indeed a bit like looking for stubble. There are even a few guys who don't dare to say it explicitly, and directly let him simply buy a building pet beast. When the time comes, how to evolve, decide for yourself. If the time frame is the rarest of the pet animal attributes, then the architectural class is the rarest or even none of the pet animal categories. Its price is not measured at all. Sumyu actually thought, even if he was still struggling, after he gave the key to the secret realm of the Dragon King of the Earth to the Lieutenant of the Golden Touch, could he ask for a time system or architectural pet beast? Looking at the face of the salesman in front of him, Sumyu sighed, just about to open his mouth to say that it was difficult for him. This woman seems to suddenly think of something. It seems that there is really a house that matches your request, sir, but Sumyu's eyes lit up. Just what? Is it a matter of price? He had just checked the share of the card that Chen Tianyan had given him, which amounted to 160 million. The price of the fire dragon scale did not need to be said. In addition, the resources such as dragon grass and earth red copper were also handed over to the Kunlun group to deal with. At this time, above the Blue Star, the house prices of the Yanhuang ancient country had not yet reached the point of being so outrageous in the previous life. After all, above the Blue Star, the royal beast is the industry and pillar as long as it is concerned, and it is also the most important combat force. In addition, although real estate has also increased slowly in recent years, it has not really reached the point of inching the land. A large manor that meets his requirements is already a price of 100 million yuan at most. The salesman shook his head. The price of that house is not high, even as long as 30 million, but the reputation of that house is not good, and some people say, there is murderous house, haunted. Sumyu couldn't laugh or cry. On top of this Blue Star, is there such a building? Looking at Sumyu like this, the saleswoman hurriedly said, Sir, don't believe it. We have already sent a general-level Imperial Beast Master to explore, and we haven't found any undead pet beasts appearing. But in this regard, there will always be strange things that happen inexplicably. Extremely eccentric, several people bought it, and they all changed hands at a low price. Now this house is actually quite famous in our Chongyang district, and this is not the only one with this problem. That is, these days, the 32 buildings and 3 units of the Red Star Old Community on the side of the road of Chongyang Fiheng have recently been rumored to be haunted. Many people have placed their houses on our low price and resold it. Chongyang District, Fiheng Road, Red Star Community 32. Building 3 unit? Isn't that the name of your own neighborhood? Haunted? How did he not know? Sure enough, the son did not say anything strange and chaotic. Where are the gods and ghosts? Sumyu suddenly fixed his mind. Are there any casualties? The saleswoman was stunned, and then smiled bitterly. If there is really any injury, it is fine. This shows that there are really pet beasts. It is this kind of invisible and untouchable time that makes it even more strange. No casualties? Although Sumyu said that he didn't quite believe in any gods and ghosts, he had to say that crossing Imperial beasts, these messy things had happened, and it didn't seem strange that some gods and ghosts appeared. However, he was really interested in this kind of thing, and directly waved his hand. Let's take a look. The woman's face was grim. The honorarium is doubled, and if it does happen, I'm giving you 100,000 alone. Under the heavy money, the saleswoman is also a nod. Well, Mr. Su, wait a minute, I'll go get the keys and call the car. This house, which has actually been passed down for 300 or 500 years, is a historical legacy. It is rumored that its owner is still a rather powerful Imperial Beastmaster. Later, someone bought it, renovated it, decorated it, and then about 10 years ago, there was such a strange thing. Objects in the home are always changed for no reason. When you wake up, you even feel like you're not staying in the same room. Some professional royal beastmasters who came to inspect also looked at it several times, but they did not find any trace of pet beasts. So, listening to the words of the saleswoman on the road, Sumyu nodded. The location of this mansion really meets Sumyu's requirements. Not within the city, but not far away. It's a quiet place. It even relies on a small low mountain. The mountain town is called the Mountain City, and there are still many such hills. This makes this house have a quiet atmosphere even if it is viewed from the outside. No wonder this house is haunted, this realm, this atmosphere. At best, it is quiet and comfortable. At worst, it is indeed a bit gloomy. Sumyu walked straight in. The driver and the saleswoman followed suit. But obviously, both of them were a little frightened. Sumyu didn't pay attention to this, but it was really true. He walked into this mansion and really felt an indescribable special feeling. It wasn't dangerous, it just felt as if something was watching him. Are there really ghosts? The terrifying spiritual perception given by the yellow seal, whether it was Sumyu or Xiaopai, could clearly perceive it. After he entered this realm, there were eyes watching him. However, he could also perceive through that terrible perception that this gaze did not seem to have any malice. On the contrary, it is like a naughty boy, just thinking that it is simply fun. Interesting? The corners of Sumyu's mouth were raised, pretending not to care at all as if he was watching in this mansion. It's a huge mansion. The first half of the district has a garden like a water town in Jiangnan, with residential houses and 2-story ancient pavilions. Behind them are huge empty houses, built with special materials and extremely tough, as a venue for pet animal activities, training, and even battles. It can be said that this mansion perfectly combines the oriental architectural beauty of the ancient style and the royal beast style above the blue star. At the same time, the breadth of the land area is also very good. Isn't this kind of mansion what you are looking for? Sumyu smiled slightly, and said directly to the female saleswoman next to him, I want this house. How much is it? After Carrie has crossed out 19 million, the rest of the formalities, wait for tomorrow to send it to yourself. Walking back into the house, the sky had darkened slightly. Sumyu turned on the light, and only then did he see something special in front of the door of the largest main room, somewhat similar to the sunny day doll of Fuzu Island country. But to be more refined, even from head to toe, it can be said that it is vivid and vivid, enough to see the exquisite skills of the paper tie people. This paper man hung on the beam of the main house, just floating right in front of his eyes, as if floating in front of him. smearing dark eyes, as if staring at Sumyu. Chapter 033. Sumyu glanced at this thing with some surprise. Inside the house of the Yanhuang ancient kingdom, is there still this thing? However, Sumyu didn't make any moves, just walked around, and after remembering everything in this whole room, he directly summoned the red-blooded demon lizard that had been holding back for an afternoon. Smack dab at that. Looking at this large courtyard, the red-blood demon lizard was also extremely excited. Sumyu smiled slightly. Remember, in the future, don't enter the main room at will. Those big pet training halls in the backyard, you can come and go at will. There is also a room specially prepared for you. Snort. Yes, master. After taking another look at this huge mansion, especially the strange paper man doll, Sumyu took his luggage out of the Imperial Beast space. This house can be seen, although no one has been occupied, but it is cleaned regularly. It is still quite clean. Otherwise, Sumyu would not have chosen to stay directly. A night passed, and Sumyu did not choose to meditate, but purely sleep. Even though his physique had improved greatly, even after Xiaopai had been promoted to the elite level. Before, his realm had also been raised to the ordinary 9th order. Naturally, the physique has also improved again. But deep meditation was so exhausting that he really couldn't recuperate without a few days of rest. And the next morning, Sumyu found something unusual. In this room, a painting that should have been hung on the wall in front of his feet did not know when it appeared on the left-hand side. The small ornaments placed on the side actually appeared on the ground. It was as if the child had finished playing and then casually threw it on the ground. What's going on here? Sumyu's eyes narrowed slightly. After he knew the strangeness of this house from the mouth of the female salesman, naturally it was impossible to really let down his guard completely and go straight to sleep. If so, the heart was indeed a little too big. Sumyu looked directly at Xiaopai. Xiaopai's pupils also revealed a humane look of surprise and ignorance. Its spiritual perception has been unleashed, although it has not stimulated the yellow seal. However, under the spiritual perception, if there is any breath of life, it will definitely feel something. And Xiaopai last night, it can be said that there was no special situation at all. Or is it a ghost? Sumyu not only had no fear, but became more and more interested. He walked directly out of the bedroom and into the main hall, where he saw the paper doll hanging on the beam again. Before, this thing looked pretty cute. Looking at it again now, there is an illusion of a suicide person hanging from the beam of this room. Sumyu also had no fear, and directly took the paper man in his hand. Feel free to pinch it twice, and even tear it apart. Subsequently, he looked directly at this strange paper man with a mythological illustration. However, the mythical atlas did not give him half a bit of feedback. Obviously, this thing is not a creature or a pet beast. What the hell is that? Most importantly, in this house, there are many paper dolls hanging like this. The previous saleswoman also said that when cleaning up, she threw away these things, but in 2 days, it came out again. Obviously, it is also part of the strangeness of this ancient house. Sumyu was suspicious in his heart, but he was not in a hurry. The next few days can be said to be orderly. He looked at the strange situation that appeared in the house from time to time, but he did not investigate it in depth again. First, I followed up with the formalities for the transfer of the house. Then every day to Chongyang district, and even the entire mountain city to sweep up and collect some special materials. Small-skinned bluegrass is fed step by step. It can be said that for this strange house, Sumyu did not seem to find anything strange at all. Even in less than 10 days, the skin of the macular snake molted again today. This is the 6th molt. What Sumyu did not expect was that Xiaopai's molting this time, the improvement of the realm, was still enough to improve by 2 steps. The realm of strength was directly upgraded to the 4th order of elites. In addition to taking care of Xiaopai, Sumyu did not leave in this ancient mansion. Something was boiling in the cauldron of extraordinary material that I bought with that bite. 10 days flew by. With the re-improvement of the small skin and the molting, Sumyu could also feel it. The improvement of feedback is one aspect. I can finally do deep meditation again. He is now an ordinary 10th order. If there were no accidents, this time meditating, Sumyu would be able to try to break through to the elite level. In just over a month, it broke through to the elite level. This speed, looking at the entire Blue Star Federation, is probably very rare. As for the situation of this house, Sumyu was already a little intolerable. The clay man also has 3 points of fire. Stayed here for 10 days. Every morning, not only his house, but even the whole mansion, there will be all kinds of magical situations. This kind of prank-like thing, although it does not cause any harm, but it is too panicked to say it, and it is also annoying, isn't it? Especially yesterday, when I was getting the things I bought, I almost misplaced things because of inertia, resulting in the hard work in the past few days almost in vain, and the more than 1 million spent on buying these things was almost adrift. This made Sumyu annoyed. Naturally, it is conceivable. And starting today, it's time to get it right. If he couldn't find out, Sumyu wasn't without other means. The easiest way to do that is to call people. He is no longer the poor student he used to be. The last trip to the secret realm, needless to say. There was also the Sun Commandery, President Wang, who was waiting for him to give news, and these were all big people. If you really can't do it, let them directly help themselves investigate. Night. Sumyu slowly closed his eyes. Xiao Pai was still coiled around him, and he obviously understood his master's determination. At the back of his head, the strange yellow mark began to squirm slowly. Huang Yin slowly entered Sumyu's dreamland, and one mysterious fluctuation after another was transmitted. At this moment, Sumyu's sense of heaven and earth became incomparably transparent under this yellow seal meditation method. It was as if everything in the world could not escape his induction. It's a very esoteric feeling. Before, Sumyu already had induction. It was also in this way that Sumyu came to this new home, did not hurry, and has been following the order, just waiting for tonight. Sure enough, it seemed to be because of the special situation in Sumyu's body. This kind of evil and mysterious temperament has a great attraction to this kind of existence itself. Almost after Sumyu fell into meditation, under the blessing of Huang Yin, an unspeakable special feeling appeared in Sumyu's perception. At the same time, the yellow seal on the small leather back connected to Sumyu's soul began to turn wildly and rapidly. It was as if Sumyu had entered sleep, and the corners of his mouth were raised. Little things finally exposed the horse's feet. Come to BB today and see who is more terrifying. Chapter 034. In an instant, it was as if the whole world was directly expanding and exploding at this moment. Countless shadows, countless tentacles like shadows, swinging wildly. A series of whispers appeared in this small house. Here it comes again, here it comes again. Not far from the house, the red-blooded demon lizard, which had an exclusive room, looked at the room in front of it and walked quickly through the house, completely uneasy. The hosts were horrible. And at this moment, in this room, the faint gaze appeared in this house almost at the same time. This time, it was no longer that feeling of being in the dark, but through the yellow seal, the most intuitive induction of the spiritual aspect. It can be said that the yellow seal is the highest level of all spiritual power. Although Sumyu didn't know whether there was a true mythical level in this world, at this moment, at this level of the yellow seal, Sumyu had no doubt that it was a mythical level thing. This is not the level of strength, but the difference in the level of personality. Otherwise, why would a general level imperial beast master who was also considered to be a master come to this mansion and not be able to detect anything wrong? And Sumyu and Xiaopai, who had the blessing of Huang Yin, could be extremely clearly sure that there was definitely a special life in this ancient mansion. This is the gap in levels. Although the current Sumyu and Xiaopai may not be the more powerful general level imperial beast masters, the opponents of the general level pet beasts. But this level of gap is undoubtedly enough for them to discover some differences that others can't find. And just this slight difference was enough to make Sumyu take the shot. Sumyu's eyes opened instantly, and the flickering tentacle shadow, the crazy whisper, not only did not stop at this moment, but even more fanatical. And the yellow seal on the back of the small leather began to turn wildly at this moment. Little skin. In an instant, a ripple of nothingness spread out. The realm of terror spread out in an instant along with the small skin that was no longer what it used to be. The spirit whiplash, in this subtle breath, directly split on the body of this figure. Wow, a special eerie cry sounded. It's like a baby's cry. In the middle of this night, it looks particularly crisp. Xiaopai directly moved, and under the rotation of the yellow seal, the spirit of nothingness whipped the condensed spiritual chain, and directly wrapped this figure around. Sumyu finally saw clearly what this thing really looked like. Sure enough, it was a paper man. However, Compared to the paper man doll hanging in front of the door, like a hanging ghost, this paper man is half a person tall. And it's more vivid. In addition to the blush on that cheek, it was too abrupt, and even made Sumyu feel that this thing was like a real person. However, at this moment, this paper man who appeared at night and could definitely scare himself to death was crying in the face of Sumyu and the small skin that wrapped it around. That's all there is to it. Sumyu lowered his head and watched the tears that fell to the ground. This tear, not water. It's a small blue piece of paper. It flowed from the large eye socket of the paper man in front of him. It's as if it's a comic. Looking at this blue piece of paper, it slowly disappeared on the ground. Sumyu looked at this special paper man with great interest. He could feel that the breath on the paper man in front of him was not strong. It can even be said to be extremely weak. However, such a weak little thing was able to evade the search of the General Marshal level Imperial Beast Master, and let himself go to such great pains to find it out. How is this possible? Sumyu's slightly disappointed mood was surprised again, and without hesitation, he directly looked at this sturdy little paper man who was bound by small leather with the identification ability of the mythical illustration. Mutant Paperman, Wild, Ontology. Level, Normal 10th Order. Potential, Unknown. Talents, Assimilation Assembly, Elite, Division. Elite. Skill, Tear paper into soldiers, Normal. Looking at this paper man who lifted the car, Sumyu was slightly stunned. The paperman, an extremely rare undead pet beast. But being rare and definitely not just powerful. On the contrary, this is an extremely weak undead pet beast, along with skeleton soldiers, white phosphorus demons, etc., known as the shame of the undead system. It's just that compared to the rest, the number is countless times rarer. And it is a relatively oriental undead pet beast. Sumyu could say that he had never imagined that the source of such a strange haunted mansion was actually a paper man carrying a car. However, the reason why he was so surprised obviously did not stop there. The most bizarre thing is the talent and skills of the paper man who lifts the car. The reason why the paper man is in the undead family of pet beasts is also called a disgrace. It's because they don't have talent? If you have to say it, there is also one talent, that is, being finished by a fire creature, or even throwing out a lighter. It is very likely to be a little bit. As for skills, there is one. It's just not a weird tearing paper into soldiers. It's an ordinary power booster. After all, the palanquin is not something that ordinary people can lift. But at this moment, this strange car-lifting paper man, there was not a single skill that Sumyu knew. Moreover, he could feel that these several skill talents were the original skills of this paper-carrying man, and not through what other means to learn. There's a big difference to that. The origin skill talents will increase their level with their own realm. For example, Xiaopai's talent molted before it was an ordinary level, and after being promoted to an elite level, it became an elite talent. The rest of the origin skills, even if they are not promoted at the first time, will be improved in the subsequent growth. Therefore, the innate ability of pet beasts has also become an extremely important criterion for measuring potential, and this is only in the mythological illustrations, and like the small skin that has been molted and evolved 5 times, it is a paper man who is given the word mutation. There are 2 origin talents that are 1 level higher than the ontological realm, and there is also a skill that has never been heard of. This paper man who claims to be the shame of the undead seems to have a lot of potential. Those 2 innate skills are just that. This skill is easy to understand. Tearing paper into soldiers, just like sprinkling beans into soldiers. Sumyu remembered the hanging ghost paper man doll hanging outside the door. No wonder he had suspected it before, but he hadn't found anything. It turned out that the paper man doll was not the body of this thing at all. Interesting. Sumyu's eyes lit up. Then, at the moment when he was surprised, outside the door, there was an anxious snort sound. Sumyu was shocked and quickly got up and walked outside the door. However, just after opening the door, he saw a scene that made his scalp tingle. Chapter 035 in front of his eyes. One by one, paper people who were one size smaller than the paper people who had just lifted the car appeared in front of their eyes. At a cursory glance, there are even hundreds or thousands. One by one, the whole body was snow white, only the face had a touch of red on it, and the black and dark eyes were so firmly staring at Sumyu at this time. The red-blooded demon lizard that made a sound was now being carried on the shoulders of a group of people behind it. The venom spat out of the body of the red-blooded demon lizard made a mess of these paper people's bodies, even like smoke sprinkled by sulfuric acid. But even so, these paper people didn't seem to feel the slightest pain at all, and let the red-blooded demon lizard struggle on it, and did not let go of it. Watching his master appear, the red-blood demon lizard couldn't help but look over. Whoops! The outside world is so terrible, I want to go back to the secret place. It's too scary, and his own big brother Pi is just that after all, it is his own big brother, naturally not an ordinary person. Not to mention, not only the master of his own, but also the master of the big brother. But why are there so many weird and terrifying paper men in this place? More than a few hundred paper people? Even if it was hundreds of ordinary second and third order pet beasts, it was not a good thing to mess with. After all, the attack and killing skills that have not reached the monarch level or above, or have some superpower range, the human sea tactics are still quite effective. No wonder this ghost place is full of such doll-like paper people everywhere, and it turns out that the key moment was used like this. Look at the appearance of the red-blood demon lizard. Sumyu couldn't help but take a breath of cold air slightly, both amazed at the innate ability of this strange paper-lifting man. He was speechless about the red-blooded demon lizard's nest. His mind moved, and he looked into the room. Behind him, the so-called body of the paper-lifting man who was firmly bound by the small leather spirit chain and could not be moved. With a smile on his face, he said, "You made a pact with me, right?" After the paper man was bound by the spirit chain, and found that he could not break free, the little face that was crying loudly was looking at the human who had just scared him to cry, or subconsciously a little afraid. The talent of this paper-carrying man is terrible. And in addition to these paper man armies, Sumyu still didn't know, how exactly did this paper man evade the investigation of the high-level Imperial Beast Master? At the same time, how do you avoid your own perception? This paper man seemed to be a comic two-dimensional character appeared in front of his eyes. And the black and slippery eyeballs turned, and he didn't think about it directly, so he nodded. Then, the little paper man pointed to the chain on his body and signaled for himself to let go of it first. Sumyu laughed again. "Are you stupid to me? Your ability is so strange, naturally you have to conclude a contract before you can let it go?" Listening to Sumyu's words, the paper man who had been recognized for this little trick immediately wowed again and cried loudly. The pieces of paper tears that flowed from his face fell to the ground again. Sumyu didn't even pay any attention to the paper man outside the door. Obviously, these paper people are controlled by this paper man who lifts the car. At this moment, the paper people were blocked, and these paper people had no choice but to carry the red-blooded demon lizard that wanted to come and exchange hostages around the courtyard. Sumyu, on the other hand, had already closed his eyes. Re-enter meditation? His realm level itself had already reached the 10th level of the ordinary level. This time of meditation, he himself had already directly broken through into the elite level. However, there is another very important thing. Before doing deep meditation, as soon as Sumyu's mind moved, the void spirit stone in the Imperial Beast's face slowly floated in the air, and then, it slowly turned transparent. At the same time, the terrifying whispers, shaking tentacles, and extremely fine mist slowly spread out from Sumyu's body. After this wisp of mist and this incomparably mysterious situation appeared, the paper man who lifted the car subconsciously looked at the past again, and even the people who controlled the small paper people suddenly stopped. The originally orderly movements of the countless paper people outside suddenly froze. There was an unspeakable sense of horror in the eerie. It also made the red-blood demon lizard's continuous hissing sound freeze, afraid of making any movements. These paper people really did something to it? However, it was clear that the red-blood demon lizard had thought too much. At this moment, all the attention of the paper man was on that figure. At this moment, it only felt that the human being in front of it was the most terrifying existence in the world. He's not going to kill himself, the paper man who lifted the car only felt that his spirit was going to collapse at this moment. Wow, I agreed, let's make a contract. Unfortunately, Sumyu couldn't hear it now. Even if he heard it, there was no way. He was still just an ordinary realm. He could only contract a pet beast only by breaking through again. Can we make a contract again? And right now, the void spirit stone was in the Imperial Beast space, like a bunch of colorless water, slowly spreading away. At the same time, Sumyu's body began to tremble slightly. Finally, along with the complete dissipation of the Void Realm Spirit Stone, the original void barrier in Sumyu's Imperial Beast space was directly shattered. There was only a small Imperial Beast space the size of a house, and this moment suddenly expanded. Ordinary people break through to the elite level. If there is no other chance, it is probably the size of a courtyard. Compared with the original space, expanding it by 3 or 5 times is already the limit. However, at this moment, there was the Void Realm Spirit Stone and the special Yellow Seal meditation method under Sumyu. This original Imperial Beast space had already expanded tenfold in such a short period of effort, and this expansion hasn't even stopped. Time passes slowly. I don't know how long it took. Sumyu opened his eyes. His spiritual power subconsciously swept through his own Imperial Beast space, a huge Imperial Beast space, which made Sumyu slightly shocked. Such a huge Royal Beast space, you can completely manage it well? Not only can the Royal Beast grow faster, but also has a steady stream of wealth. But now was obviously not the time to think about this. As soon as Sumyu opened his eyes, he looked directly at the listless paper man who was still bound by Xiaopai with spiritual chains. The second contract pet beast is coming? 18/11, 1:52 p.m. Sundar. Chapter 036. The little paper man looked at the human in front of him. Although there are still some fears and grievances in the heart, the connection in the soul has made its instinctive closeness and good feelings for such a human being. Contract successful? This mutated paper man became his second true contract pet beast. Unlike the red-blooded demon lizard, the second team of janitors is obviously very different. Looking at the bottom of his eyes, there were still some frightened little paper people. Sumyu held his chin and began to think. What would be a name for you? Small paper? Sumyu looked expectantly at the paper man who lifted the car. The paper man also looked at Sumyu, and then, this mutated paper man directly cried again. Wow, that's so ugly. Tearful pieces of paper dripped on the ground, and Sumyu scratched his head. Don't like it? I think it's okay. The red-blooded demon lizards that had finally fallen from the paper man quickly crawled over and looked at the paper people with some disdain. This guy really doesn't know how to be interesting. The master personally appreciates the name, and he doesn't even know how to cherish it. Master, I like it. I can call it Little Black. Sumyu glanced at the red-blood demon lizard. The small characters are his contract pet beasts, and you are a second team janitor pet beast who comes to join in the fun. The red-blood demon lizard fell back to the ground with some grievances. Looking at this paper-lifting man who was crying and crying at every turn, Sumyu continued to hold his chin and thought, that little white. You see, you're so white. The paper man's tears fell even more. That paper white? Paper audacity? Sumyu gave up. The small characters in pain. However, what he did not expect was that the howl of the paper man who carried the car really stopped at this moment. The small black eyes looked firmly at themselves. Even the blush on the cheeks became a little brighter at this moment. Sumyu raised his eyebrows. The names of these 3 pit daddies, won't this little guy really get in love? He asked tentatively. Paper white. The paper man shook his head. The corners of Sumyu's eyes trembled, and he had some bad premonitions. Paper. The paper man shook his head again. Sumyu's bad premonition finally came true. Paper aura. The paper-carrying man nodded his head busily, and above the body that had been loosened by Xiaopai with spiritual chains, the 2 arms that were also made of white paper were inserted into the waist. Wow, that's it. Paper audacity? The corners of Sumyu's mouth were pulled, and he was now eager to give himself a mouth. But obviously, if you say it, you are spilling water, and there is no point of looking back and regretting it. And paper pride has also become the name of this strange paper man. Sumyu sighed and incorporated this paper aura into the Imperial Beast space. He now had to take a good look at what the 2 origin talent skills of this paper aura heaven really had. Under the soul contract, in an instant, these 2 talents of paper pride heaven and 1 skill appeared in Sumyu's heart. Assimilation assembly. Elite. You can piece together the connected substances on your own body, and you can manipulate the patched body at will, and the size and quality of the assembled objects are determined according to their own realm. Split. Elite. Any part of one's body, including the soul, can be split and manipulated. Tear paper into soldiers. Ordinary a mutant car-lifting paper man who likes to give orders, can use paper to fold out a mini car-lifting paper man, with a certain strength of the body? Sumyu blinked. The skill of tearing paper into soldiers did not surprise him. But this assimilation assembly, and this split, finally made one of his doubts finally come to an end. He withdrew from the Imperial Beast space. I couldn't believe it when I looked at the house I had spent more than $10 million to buy. At this moment, he had a special feeling. Sumyu now understood why the objects in this room were moving, but he couldn't feel any movement. It's not that someone is secretly moving these things, it's purely because these things are moving on their own. That is to say, these are like vases, murals, those small ornaments at this moment. It is actually this proud body. It's just that after it was assembled, it split apart again, but it was still like his body and could control it himself. What is this ability? Sumyu suddenly remembered that it seemed that those rare architectural pet beasts also had similar abilities. In general, the core of the architectural pet beast may be just a special treasure, and with the wisdom to assemble and assimilate the rest of the building into its own body. But now, this is obviously the core ability of the architectural pet beast. Why does it appear in a paper man? Sumyu blinked. He didn't understand. With this ability, this little guy can assimilate himself into a huge fortress of war. It itself is the commander and the general who sits in the town, and those little paper men who tear the paper into soldiers, and the bodies that split out, are the army of pet beasts? Thinking of this scene, Sumyu had already swallowed a deep mouthful of spit. His consciousness returned to the Imperial Beast space and watched as he folded his body into a paper airplane. Then in the paper sky flying in the sky of the Imperial Beast space, Sumyu was silent. This mutated little paper man is really promising. The potential that these two talents alone can develop is almost unimaginable. My own luck seems to be quite good. Such a special mutant was more attractive to Sumyu than any Emperor-level pet beast cub, even if it was a Holy Spirit-level existence cub. For this Sumyu, it was not necessarily more attractive to him than the paper auror at this time, only because at this moment, Sumyu was already a little impatient to see what kind of evolution this paper man with two special talents would have in the mythological picture book. Mythologizing is possible, is it? To find the mythical form with the highest degree of fit in the picture book? Yes. The mythical picture book in Sumyu's soul instantly flew out and appeared at the bottom of his consciousness. And the mythological atlas also began to slowly fly out of it. Chapter 037. At this moment, in front of Sumyu's eyes, there were only two picture books. But Sumyu did not extend his hand at the first time. Only because these two separate albums that fly out of the mythological picture book are slightly different from the past. Previously, whether it was the evolution of the mythical form of the small skin or the red-blooded demon lizard, it was a choice of one album after another. At this moment, in front of Sumyu's eyes, these two albums were extremely strangely connected together. That's right, these are two cross-legged albums? Sumyu's brow raised slightly. He still saw it for the first time, but he did not hesitate again, and directly entered the perception into this atlas. Dark? Instantly occupy Sumyu's immediate perception. It's a dark world. Gradually, a little light lit up. It was a pale ghost fire. Then, the number of ghost fires increased. Finally, Sumyu saw clearly what. This ghost fire was at the end of the road. It was a huge portal. In this dark world, it is like a revolving door. And above that portal, hovered three gigantic words, Ghost Door Closed. Sumyu inhaled a cold breath, and then a wisp of excitement finally rose. Finally see the gods of the East again. Whether it is the previous yellow-clad King Asta or the black dragon King Niederhog, there are traces of the West. And this time, it is obvious that above this mythical book is a god of the earth among the gods of the East. In fact, it is also true. Sumyu's footsteps did not need to move, and the world in front of him had already changed. Ghost Gate Pass, and the Minotaur horse noodles guarding Ghost Gate Pass. Forget the river of Forgotten River, Huangquan Road, Nai Ho Bridge, and Mengpo. Crouching by the bridge. 10 halls of Yenluo, Judge, City of Death, City of Death. One myth and one after another the Yin Xiao mansions slowly appeared. But what surprised Sumyu was a little. Whether it was the 10 halls of Yenluo, or the gods such as Zhongkui, Mengpo, Judge Kui, and so on, these gods had already appeared, but they were only hurrying by. Obviously, the real god form, not these. What's that falling to the ground? Sumyu was a little surprised, and even saw the legendary Bodhisattva of Jizo. However, it is still a rush to pass. Finally, this illusion of visiting the underground mansion slowly stopped, and in front of Sumyu's eyes in this vast Fengdu city, the terrifying city of the dead, even under the shroud of 18 layers of hell, a huge figure that still could not be concealed slowly appeared. It's like a mountain. It's just a backdrop. Under his back, in the dark embroidered robe, the entire mansion was completely enshrouded. In other words, the earth itself is in its illusion, and these countless beings are all the beings that are incarnated by one thought. The dungeon, it is him, and he is the earthly house, the ultimate embodiment of death in this world. The darkness slowly receded. The scene of the Imperial Beast's face once again appeared in front of Sumyu's eyes. It's just that Sumyu still hasn't returned to God. The scene just now had an extremely huge impact on him. Compared to the mystery and indescribability of the King of Yellow, the fierceness of Niederhog, this is the one who truly has the majesty of the gods. Sumyu looked up and glanced at the paper sky that turned into a paper airplane flying over the Imperial Beast's space. Can this thing really become that kind of existence in the future? Sumyu didn't know, but the information of this illustration has already come to mind. Mythological form, authentic incarnation of Yanluyan Emperor. The heavenly Dao is authentic and humane, the earth is turbid, the authentic incarnation, the darkest to the yin, the ultimate of death. The gods of the earth palace, Taiyin Xingjun, Emperor Fengdu, Emperor Dongyu, Tianzi of Yanluo, and so on, were all incarnated by it. Fit level, 99.9%. Estimated number of transformations, 9 times. Transformation difficulty, high. Expected success rate, 65%. However, looking at the scene in front of him, Sumyu had not yet reacted, and then, in the mythical illustrated book, he gave feedback again. The pet beast mutant paperman has a special talent, which can trigger the evolution of the special associated mythological form of the Yanluoyan Emperor. Can be done together. Special mythological derivative form, Yin Xiao Difu. The place where the legendary ghost is located is composed of Ghost Gate Pass, Huangquan Road, Nehi Bridge, Forgotten River, Wangxiangtai, Sanshenxi, Fengdu City, Dead City, and 18 layers of hell. Fit level, 99.9%. Estimated number of transformations, 9 times. Transformation difficulty, medium. Expected success rate of the transformation, 95%. Derivative mythological form? Sumyu blinked, looked at the 2 albums connected together, and instantly understood. The mythical form of the Yanluoyan Emperor is the paper aura heavenly body, and this little paper man can evolve? And this Yin Xiao mansion can be pieced together through the assimilation of innate skills? In other words, the architectural form of the paper aurora can evolve into the mythical and legendary Yin Xiao mansion. And his own form is this Yanluoyan Emperor? If the 2 were added together, if it was really completely achieved, Sumyu would even be a little afraid to think about the future strength of this paper aura with strange talents. But of course, although the degree of fit is high, the difficulty of transformation is also high. The paper was still flying in the sky, and he only felt that he was groggy and fell into sleep. In the dream, it incarnated as the Emperor of Yanluo. With a wave of his big hand, countless Yin soldiers and ghosts moved in the nest, and it sits in the center, in charge of life and death. Having such a powerful dream, the first thing that came to the mind of Paper Aura was that human being. However, this thought had only just appeared, and a breath that was no less than that of him descended and completely suppressed it. Paper pride understands when it ascends. Even in the dream, he couldn't escape the palm of Sumyu's hand. When he opened his eyes, he saw Sumyu's slightly hanging smile in front of him. At the same time, a question suddenly came from the ear that made Paper Aotian a little unresponsive. Oh God, do you know what body art is? Paper Audily, wow. Chapter 038, The light is shining. Clear skies with no clouds. Sumyu sat leisurely under the pavilion of the ancient mansion. The little leather lazily coiled above the beams and pillars of the pavilion, looking at the 2 figures of the pet beast training ground in front of the compound. Its big brother is actually very leisurely. However, for the rest of the Imperial Beast Masters, the training of pet beasts is mostly about the use of skills, as well as how to slightly hone some of the rest of the abilities. However, at this moment, these two pet beasts in Sumyu's hands were completely different. The red blood demon lizard was now running quickly around this courtyard. This guy's desire to get stronger can be said to be the strongest of all the pet beasts. Its evolutionary material has not yet been done. Therefore, let Sumyu give it a little bit of the so-called growth training method. Sumyu casually let it try to see if it could fly. Then, the big lizard ran fast, thinking that one day, he could really fly up into the sky. The other paper man who carried the car was also busy. The body of the paper pride was sitting on the ground, holding a large paintbrush in his hand, smearing something on the back of a doppelganger. He had torn the paper into a soldier. The rest of the doppelgangers stood and waited behind the doppelganger. If you are not satisfied with the painting yourself, you will replace it. Then the messy paper man who was drawn split up, ran directly to the pond in the back, washed it, dried it in the sun and then painted the body. Paper Horror seems to be interested in what its master calls body art. These days are addicted to it. And besides, on the other side of the compound, a big cauldron was there, and under that cauldron, the burning red charcoal fire made a crackling sound. However, in the cauldron, the black-green liquid also followed the grunting sound. The paper man next to him was holding a large spoon, and kept playing with it. Sumyu looked at the paper Horror, who was still full of interest, and couldn't help but sigh. Naturally, he is not idle. Eggpain, let his second favorite beast with extraordinary potential do some art. Purely this more daunting evolutionary requirement. Thinking of this, Sumyu's mind moved, and he once again looked at the evolution requirements of the paper pride heaven. Current evolution requirement 1, Yin Luo Yin Emperor take incense. Learn to craft figure painting. Current evolution condition 2, Yin Luo Yin Emperor take the undead treasure ghost spirit fire. The same level attribute material resources can be replaced, but the effect is different. Current evolution requirement 1, Yin Cao Prefecture use the innate ability to assimilate the undead resources buried bone wasteland * 10 tons. Of these 3 evolutionary requirements, 2 are the ontology of the role of paper pride, and 1 is the requirement for its assimilated assembly of the architectural class. However, in these days of time, except for this painting Sumyu understood, the rest of him did not understand. Incense, in the middle of the earth, seems to be the power of faith, or is it incense candles or the like? This Sumyu has not tried it well. And that ghost fire, he had not heard of it in several large circles in the mountain city market. There are some buried bones in the wasteland, but the number of 10 tons, not to mention the price. Anyway, Sumyu looked at this number. It was really helpless. Sumyu now understood why the fit was so high, but the transformation was also so difficult. It has nothing to do with fit. It is purely a resource needed for evolution. This is only the first stage. Or the little skin and this red blood demon lizard is good. Sumyu looked at it with some emotion. The small skin has completed 8 molds since the cultivation of this period of time. Seeing that the last mold was coming, the strength had even reached the elite 8th order. This speed satisfied Sumyu. Good quality and low price, a model of evolution. I just don't know, after Xiaopai completes the first stage of evolution, what strange materials are needed for the evolution of the second stage. Sumyu's eyes looked at the red blood demon lizard. Speaking of which, after preparing for so many days, the evolutionary needs of the red blood demon lizard should be almost the same, right? The thought in Sumyu's mind had just arisen. A whoosh sound sounded from a distance. It was the paper man who was standing in front of the cauldron bench. It is really said that Cao arrived. Sumyu suddenly stood up. Against that stench, I came to this cauldron. The black and green soup liquid has condensed into a frozen body under many days of boiling. Sumyu swallowed a mouthful of spit. Paper Aotian put down the paintbrush with some surprise. Instantly changed into the form of a paper airplane, and came to Sumyu's shoulder, and even Xiaopai swam over suspiciously. I wanted to see what the master had come up with over the years. Sumyu licked the corners of his mouth, looked at the red-blooded demon lizard that was still in the courtyard and wanted to take off, and beckoned lizards. Come here. The red-blooded demon lizard that heard Sumyu's voice rushed over. Sumyu took a complicated look at the red-blood demon lizard, and then at the black and green cream that emitted a foul smell. I can't help but feel a little suspicious in my heart. Wouldn't there be any problem with eating? The evolution of the red blood demon lizard is actually extremely simple. That's taking poison. The feedback in the Mythological illustrated book is clear. For the first time, after taking the poison mainly based on elite level and fusing 13 ordinary grade poisons into jelly, take it as appropriate. The second time, all levels were raised by 1 level, a fusion poison supplemented by 13 elite poisons, and this time in addition to taking it, it was also applied to the body. The third time, it is the monarch level mainly, and the 13 flavors will fuse the handsome level poison with the poison. Repeat internal and external application. Therefore, the few resources that Sumyu had obtained from the Earth Dragon's secret realm, only the fiery sulfur with fire poison and poison, were left in Sumyu's hands. Nowadays, the first boiling was finally made after Sumyu had been making it for more than half a month. However, at this time, even Sumyu, when he smelled this stench slightly, couldn't help but be a little dizzy. It is conceivable that the toxicity of this cauldron has reached what extent. During this period of time, Sumyu had been letting the red blood demon lizard suppress its own ascension, and it was waiting for this day. Looking at this large bucket of poison, Sumyu swallowed a mouthful of spit, and then looked at the red-blooded demon lizard that was already excited to rush over. Then he laughed, "Oh demon lizard, you've been with me for almost a month. Although I don't have a contract with you, I will not treat you badly, and I have already studied your evolutionary path. It's ready today." Snort. The red blood demon lizard's eyes lit up, and it was finally waiting for this day. It couldn't help but burst into tears. Sure enough, the emperor pays off. As long as you pay loyalty and hard work, even if you don't sign a contract with your master won't really abandon it. Is it finally going to fight back? Is it finally time to get up from now on? It's really a hand-rubbing that makes the lizard nervous and expectant. Sumyu looked at the excited red blood demon lizard. It's just that this evolutionary process may have a little bit of pain. The red-blooded demon lizard didn't even think about it directly, and stretched out 2 front paws to show that he didn't care. It thought of the scene where its eldest brother was forcibly torn apart by the snake when he was molting. Pain is proof of getting stronger. Good. Sumyu nodded satisfactorily, and glanced at the red blood demon lizard. As long as you succeed, then the master will give you a name. The red blood demon lizard nodded excitedly. Sumyu finally let out a slow breath and took out a spoonful from the black and green in the big bucket. Eat. The red-blooded demon lizard looked at the foul-smelling ball in front of him. He glanced at the master who was looking at himself sincerely with sincere eyes, without the slightest intention of teasing. It swallowed a mouthful of spit. Then, he took it straight up and swallowed it with a grunt. Then, he was in the expectant eyes of Sumyu, Xiaopai, and Paper Aotian. There was a terrible howl. This howl let people smell tears, earth-shattering weeping ghosts and gods. Even if Sumyu was ready, looking at the red-blooded demon lizard rolling on the ground, he couldn't help but feel a shiver in his heart. Then it lasted for half a day, and the howl grew weaker and weaker. Just when Sumyu thought it was going to end, his eyelids shook rapidly. How did this red-blooded demon lizard spit white foam? Is it difficult to cut the pulp in the I Ching? Chapter 039 Niederhog, in Sumyu's speculation, should be mainly the existence of the poison attribute, followed by the fire attribute. Therefore, in the first evolution of the red blood demon lizard, only 6 stages of evolution, it was indeed reasonable to take a large amount of poisonous resources. But Sumyu didn't even think that this reaction was so strong. Sumyu glanced at the liquid in the bucket. Does this thing really have such great power? In fact, Sumyu obviously didn't know that almost every Imperial Beast Master had to be careful when using poison resources. Because of the poison system's resources, even if it is for the poison pet beast, a quantity is not well mastered, and it is easy to have a big accident. And it has to be said that the particularity of toxic resources makes it impossible for anyone to mix a bunch of toxic resources together. Toxicity is not like an element of water and fire. This thing will be neutralized, it will be purified, it will be fermented. It is easy to cause a lot of different changes. Feed the pet beast like this, unless you want to kill the pet beast. It can be said that, in a sense, the evolution of the red-blooded devil lizard is even more haunted than the evolution of the small skin of the yellow spotted snake before. However, the record on the mythological book is obviously not wrong. Just when Sumyu carefully touched his hand to the eyes of this red-blooded demon lizard, he was ready to roll his eyelids slightly to see if he was dead or not. After 10 minutes of coma, a flash of light suddenly burst out from the body of the red-blooded demon lizard that spat out white foam. The light of evolution? No, it's the light of the ascension realm? Sumyu finally let out a slow breath. It was fine. If this really poisoned this big lizard that was still quite loyal to him, Sumyu would also be very sad. After all, it was too difficult to find such an obedient pet beast that could take such a well-behaved care home without a soul contract. Sizzle, the light slowly disappeared, and the red-blooded demon lizard that had regained its feet made a hissing sound toward the sky. Then, he was thrown out directly by Xiaopai's spiritual whip. Smack smack, the red-blood demon lizard understood that even if it broke through to the elite level, its big brother would always be its good big brother. The red-blood demon lizard wagged its tail and came towards Sumyu. Its body did not see the slightest change. However, the already dark skin scales seemed to become darker. Sumyu directly swept this triumphant and extremely excited big lizard with the ability to identify the mythical picture book. Sure enough, at this time, the red-blood demon lizard was promoted to the elite first rank. Moreover, several origin talent skills have also been upgraded to the elite level. Sumyu nodded. The mythological picture book is still reliable. Being able to simulate the mythical architectural forms of the yellow-robed King Asta, the Yenluoyin Emperor, and even the Yin Xiao De Mansion would indeed not have any flaws in this situation. Looking at the large bucket of poison jelly, Sumyu patted the head of the red-blooded demon lizard. This bucket is your goal. After eating them all, come back and tell me. But remember that this thing should be taken in moderation. If you eat too much, really poisoned at once, then I have no way. The red-blood demon lizard nodded, looking at this large vat of stinky poison, revealing Sumyu's extremely familiar look of pain and happiness. This is the price of strength improvement? However, the owner really cares about it. Suddenly, the red-blood demon lizard was touched and excited. Sumyu stood up, only to look at the red-blooded demon lizard that had grabbed the barrel with his mouth, but had not yet left the meaning of the tail that had not yet left the meaning, and then remembered the promise he had just made. Sumyu thought about it for a moment, and then solemnly said, "From now on, you will be called Two Dogs. Don't live up to the name." The red-blood demon lizard stood stunned, holding the barrel of poison in his mouth, and looked at the fact that he had turned around at this time and walked back to the owner of the paper man, only to feel a mess in the wind. So love will disappear, isn't it? Although it is said that the red-blooded demon lizard, that is, the second dog, has never felt much love for him by its owner. Xiaopai on the side looked at this scene and even couldn't bear it. Slowly came to his body, and gently patted the shoulder of the red-blood demon lizard's second dog with the chain formed by the condensation of the spirit whip. Sizzle. Come on, as long as you work hard to improve, the host will recognize you. Suddenly, the second dog burst into tears and looked at this big brother who often gave himself a whip at every turn. Sumyu ignored the scene of his brother over there and looked at the paper in front of him. The evolution of the red-blood demon lizard was still relatively simple, but the paper is obviously not the same here. Those few fixed materials are better to say, and when the time comes, I will ask the Sun Commander-in-Chief if there is such material. But just one thing, he really couldn't figure it out. What the hell is this incense? Sumyu is not unprepared these days. Let paper orer put down the paintbrush and study body art later. Sumyu took out a full 10 kinds of incense. There are those bought from the temple. There are those bought from the Taoist temple. There are also incense sticks bought from the storefront. Incense, he couldn't tell if it was these lit incense sticks or something else. So I bought them all. Or what? Sandalwood, musk, ambergris. Even after Sumyu went out, he specially bought back a box of cigarettes. He was ready to let Paper Audacity try it one by one. As a result, as soon as it was disassembled, the mobile phone that had not sounded for a long time suddenly moved. Sumyu looked down. It was no one else, it was the phone number of the President Wang, who was left behind after exploring the secret realm of the dragon more than half a month ago. For this big man in the mountain city, Sumyu undoubtedly still had a lot of respect. After all, there have been several beast tides in the mountain city, and the other party has all calmed down. Sumyu gave this large pile of incense to Paper Aotian after slowly trying it himself, and then he answered the phone. Hey, President Wang. Classmate Zyasu, how did you think about that before? What do you say about the key to the dragon's secret realm? Chairman Wang's voice made Sumyu stunned, and then he remembered this matter. In less than a month, Sumyu, who was addicted to pet beast cultivation, had long been left behind. That touching Colonel Sun. Wanliu seemed to have said that he would stay in the mountain city for a month. Thinking of this, Sumyu hurriedly said, I've already thought about it, and I'll exchange that thing for Commander Sun. Obviously, the Sun Commander was at Chairman Wang's side, and when he heard this, he hurriedly said, Really, that little Su, you came to the Royal Beast Master Association. Forget it, Su classmate. Where are you? We come to you? Sumyu also came to the spirit at once. This Sun Commander had promised to give himself an Emperor-level pet beast cub and a Holy Spirit-level resource material. What he lacks most now is really resources. Chapter 040. Hey, this place is really nice. I really didn't know that there was such a secluded place in this mountain city. After the call, it wasn't 10 minutes. The 3 people on the phone have arrived. This speed is not so outrageous, just because these 3 people fell from the sky. Sumyu stood in the middle of the courtyard, looking up at the huge mechanical ball that fell from the sky and the 3 people who came out of the mechanical ball, a little envious. Mechanical pet beasts, really good. I just don't know, in the future, the paper Auror will grow up and transform into the Yinciao underground mansion, and what kind of mysterious mysteries can it have? It's really good. Su is young, but he will enjoy it. Looking down at Sumyu under the eyes of the god of annihilation, Chairman Wang also smiled slightly. Only soon, the smiles on the faces of Chairman Wang, Commander Sun, and Yinmeng suddenly froze on their faces. At this moment, under this high-altitude overlook, a quiet and elegant ancient mansion, after falling to this ground, an unimaginable stench, so that the corners of the 3 people's mouths could not help but twitch a little. The eyes of the 3 men looked over. I saw that in the compound of this pet beast training, above the cauldron, there were still some black and green residues left. The stench came from the cauldron and the barrel on the side. What's that? The eyelids of the 3 men trembled rapidly. Obviously, however, the strangest thing is not this situation. The eyes of the 3 people were attracted by the same thing almost immediately. It was a paper man who was only half the height of an ordinary person. The folding is extremely delicate. If it were not for the exaggerated makeup, I would have thought it was a real child at a glance from a distance. However, at this moment, the 3 people looked at the paper man and all of them were silent. The paper man sat cross-legged on the ground, holding a paintbrush in his hand, and smeared and drew on another paper man in front of him. What made the corners of the 3 people's mouths twitch the most was that the paper man was holding a burning incense in his mouth. Just like a human smoke, he took a leisurely intoxicated breath, and a purple mist slowly swallowed into his stomach along his mouth and nose. Like an addict, he looked like a fluttering immortal. It also seemed to be aware of the gaze on this side, as well as the huge mechanical pet beast in the sky, the eye of the exterminator. Only then did the paper man get up and walk over to this side. Wow, Sumyu, who are these? Sumyu smiled slightly, did not answer directly, but silently passed on the message in the soul contract. It's the Gold Lord. The resources you need to evolve may depend on these few. As soon as these words came out, Chairman Wang and the others felt that this strange little paper man seemed to see that the eyes of himself and others had lit up. Before even a few people could speak, the little paper man came directly to the front of several people, and from the pockets of the paper fold, he skillfully took out a bundle of incense candles and skillfully handed them to the 3 people. Wow. Come one no. This stuff, there's a lot of energy. Enjoyable? Look at the incense candle handed over, and the lighter in the paper man's hand, and the thumbs up. All 3 were silent. Then, the 3 of them all looked at Sumyu over there. Even with the thickness of Sumyu's face, some of his cheeks were hot at this moment. He coughed a little, relieving his embarrassment a little. Chairman Wang then looked at this strange paper man and asked in surprise. Sumyu, it's my second pet beast. A mutated paper man who lifts a car. Huh. As soon as these words came out, the brows of the 3 people were all slightly frowned. This thing was a paper man carrying a car, and of course they could see that whether it was Chairman Wang, or Commander Sun, or Yinmeng, they were all big names in the Imperial Beast realm. For this rare but not so powerful paper man, naturally also knows. However, they originally thought that this thing should be just like that red-blooded demon lizard, which Sumyu had raised and played with when he was fine. But at this moment, listening to Sumyu's meaning, this is the official pet beast of the contract? The three of them were very optimistic about Sumyu, there's no doubt about that. Before, Sumyu's display of imperial beast talent and mentality was extremely outstanding. Therefore, even if Sumyu contracted a yellow spot snake, the three still believed that Sumyu was promising in the future. Wait until you break through the elite level, and cultivate a good pet beast in the contract. But what does it mean now, such a precious second contract bit, actually given to a paper man who lifts the car? This pet beast that claims to be the shame of the undead? Chairman Wang's brow furrowed. Xiaosu, you are really a little careless. If you really want to contract a new favorite beast, you can tell me and Sun Tongling. This time, it is not a waste to give you an emperor-level pet beast cub and contract a paper man to carry a car. Chairman Wang looked like he hated iron not steel. Obviously, he was extremely optimistic about Sumyu, otherwise, he would not have said such a thing. I won't come in person this time. The same is true of the rest of Sun Wanliu, all of them are regretful. However, the paper auror on the side was obviously not happy. It shared with them the incense candles that tasted the best. What kind of person is this? Even if you are a gold lord, you can't look down on people so much? What does it paper auror exist? Even if it carried Sumyu on its back and needed one hand to support the entire Yinciao underground mansion, it was still invincible to the world? King? Unashamed? Damn, if it weren't for the sake of the Golden Lord, it would have given these stupid humans some colors to see. This guy was sulking at himself. Instead, Yin Meng suddenly said, "What do you mean, you've broken through to elite level?" As soon as this remark came out, Sun Wanliu and Chairman Wang, who were somewhat sorry, were also stunned. Unbelievably, he suddenly looked at Sumyu at this moment. It's been less than a month since the last time you explored the secret realm of the Earth Dragon. The last time Sumyu, his Imperial Beast Master realm, seemed to be only an ordinary fifth order, right? The two of them reacted abruptly. The second pet beast of the contract, the ordinary level of the Royal Beast Master is not okay, but how long has it been? However, this was obviously the case, and in the surprised eyes of the three people, Sumyu smiled and nodded, probably broke through for a little half a month. Now it's the third order of the elite. Listening to this boy's understated words, all three of them involuntarily inhaled a cold breath.